Blog Talk Radio.
Separation still curses our intent. Do you not remember the detail of those years? Our past life, bringing it to this. History fails to mention what soul has seen. With but narrative, I could smite your confusion, clothe you in knowing, and unveil the pretense parading as reality. Comprehension available only to those ready. You'd never believe me anyways, how far out legends reveal. Reason fails to enrapture. It's not my job to convert. I hint only to those having set sail. Mark direction for them seeking passage beyond to often bizarre realms. Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores, thinking the world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion, fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Do not forget the myth of our coming. Soon we will praise heroes of stranger tales than even my own. Watch where it is you wander, friend. The dark night has strange requiem. Mythic acclaim promises new season for those blessed to interpret new meaning. Recognition dawns the eye, never any coincidental meaning. Come, I await you this way to paradise. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Ben Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. It's a 5 p.m. Sabbath broadcast. We're streaming out of East Coast United States near Athens, Georgia. I thank you once again for taking your time and creating some space and some moments for us to fellowship and to share what revelation and discernment that we've been blessed to have, because I definitely consider a lot of you, even the new listeners, but many of you that have been supporters of this broadcast for a number of years, that have shared with me your own testimony and that have befriended me in the ways that you have. I'm honored to know you, and I consider you some of the wisest, most earnest, and persistent truth seekers on the planet today. And a lot of us, I feel, are definitely to be counted among the elect and the righteous, that minority which truly aspires to seek the kingdom and that has made that priority for life and being, that have dedicated all time and effort in servicing the Father and the Son and in fulfilling role and mission for this incarnation, and having brought ourselves to remembrance so that we can be utilized as vessels for whatever is the Father and the Son's will for our life and being. I honor you as I honor myself, and I give, as I always do, all honor, all praise, all worship, and all glory to the Father and the Son for even this, the blessings of this chance, this moment now, even the time and the space to utter up this prayer and to have fellowship with you. And the fact that we're able to congregate together in what I consider to be like church, and this to be like service, fellowship, where we can connect together across the broad expanse of time and space and streaming over the internet, but yet connect. And there's many of you that are from far reaches in different parts of the world and in places where I will never, ever even have chance to meet you. And for us to be able to gather in this way, it's truly a sign of the times and us as being the last generation, and that we are the ones that will be witness to the return of our King and our Lord. And so for that I give all thanks again to the Father and the Son for all blessings and, for this chance now. The poem that I shared with you is, I believe it's from my third book, A Different Way of Being. It's called The Significance of Babel. And I will be actually including that one in my next book, Skyfall, Angels of Destiny. I will have 15 poems in that book, various selections from my first 3 books, which are symbolic of my journey and which also parallel the teachings that are going to be revealed in that book. And I do happen to talk and share a little bit about my testimony and about my path in that book so that I can personalize, the journey for you and help you to understand better my own perspective, my point of view, and what it was that I came through to get to be where I am now. And for those that are interested, that song that I shared, it's called Jesus Come, and it was put forth, I don't even know the name of the group. It just says, Acquire the Fire Live. And I did post a link to that in the chat room for those that are interested in the song. I think it's really one of my new favorites, and I will go ahead and post that again into the chat room for those that have just joined us and that have just now opened up the chat, as God's Instrument and a few others were also interested in it. I think it's a very beautiful song and relevant for the times that we're in and for where we are now. I want to give a special shout out to Professor Truth for being able to join us today, and for all the new listeners and for all the old listeners. I love all of you, and I appreciate your audience and for you even taking the time to listen to the things that I have to say. Today we're going to be going into the concealed book of Baruch, which for those that are later interested in wanting to know and to look into the scriptures that I'm going to be going into today, you can download it free off of the internet. It's part of the Gnostic Bible collection, which is a massive collection of just extra biblical, extra canonical works that have been left out. It also includes the Nag Hammadi collection, which was found in 1945. There's a number of different scriptures and different passages that are still new and that most people don't yet even understand. And if you cannot find it online, you can contact me at zengarcia2010@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to send it to you as a PDF file. But for those that either have the book or that have found it on the web, we are going to be picking up this passage in the scripture on page 124. And again, this is the concealed book of Baruch. And as we go through this particular book, I will give reference to some of what Christ cites in Matthew chapter 13 as being some of those secrets that have been hidden since the foundation of the world. But before I do so, I want to share two real quick pieces of news and information with the listening audience, and I'd like to get your own advice on some of these things. But first thing I'd like to share with you about somebody that I'm going to support with my efforts and also with my own money as far as donation. It's the Soweta Orphanage Center, and the guy that heads it up is a gentleman named Pastor William Wakesa Wasiki, and he has started an orphanage, and he's a porter as well as a pastor, and he supports this orphanage with his own money. He's got a number of children that have come to be in his care, and it's based out of Nairobi, Kenya, and I believe he is asking for cash donations for those of you that are interested in wanting to support a worthy cause like this. He has a number of orphans that, as I said, have come to be under his care, and he's asking not only for cash donations, but if you happen to have extra educational books or medication, clothing, anything, even like if you have some dry food that you've been putting away for a while and that is getting close to being expired, and you want to donate that to a worthy cause, that would be something that could really benefit the children over there. I've decided myself to buy a bunch of first aid kits, and then I'm going to package those up and send them along with a check so that they can have the cash also to do whatever it is that they need to do. And of course, any help and any aid that you can provide will be greatly appreciative. And of course, we're to support the orphans and the widows as much as we can. And I could see, really no greater cause than something like this. And so if you are interested in supporting this particular cause, his name is William Wakesa Wasiki, and all you would have to put is William Wasiki. His last name is Wasike, and you can send whatever it is that you choose to P.O. Box 177-00200 City Square, Nairobi, Kenya. And I also have a phone number if you'd like to speak to him directly and ask him, and also, check and see how your donations are being used, or if you want to get involved in any other way with his ministry and with the help that he is providing these children. Phone number is 254-722-362675. And I appreciate those of you that do what you can. And of course, the Father and the Son also appreciate whatever aid you can provide as well. Now, another question that I've been posed by a listener is from a friend. I'm not going to share her name, but I'm going to read just a little bit of her story. She's asking for advice for those of you that have experienced this same kind of paranormal phenomena, as to what she can do to stop these kind of general hauntings that she and her family are experiencing. And so I'm going to read this real quick, and then, of course, if you have any advice that you'd like to share, please just email me and let me know, and I will forward on your information to her. And then if she so desires, and if you don't mind, I can, put you in contact with each other. She says this: it happened about 3 years ago. I had opened an antique shop beside my house, and it became like a Stephen King movie. Sadly, it would follow my 13-year-old daughter to school and touch her all day, so I had to homeschool her since I personally can hear them. And years ago, they got evidence of them talking on recorders. They call me all sorts of nasty names and have physically hurt us. Literally scratches throughout the years. They have pushed 2 kids down a flight of stairs. It's a personal nightmare. I have had exorcisms, blessings, and masses through the years. All 6 of us have either been touched or heard them. My dogs growl at nothing. I am the only one it still bothers. I have not had one day of a break in over 3 years. Fortunately, my faith has grown to tremendous depths, but I am afraid they have some influence over my son. It's so hard to even talk about it because people don't believe in ghosts or demons, but they are very much real and live amongst us. Like one priest said to me that I was born with a unique ability. I have heard these things since I was a little girl and have seen and experienced supernatural things all of my life. But I told him it feels more like a curse. And so I personally have not had experiences with this kind of thing, except for one time when I was 15 years old and we were messing with a Ouija board, and one of the people that had the hands on the little thing that they go around and put over the letters, I witnessed him get possessed, and that was a whole crazy experience because he ran out of the house and I had to go find him. We found him at the back door, scratching on the back of the door. I put him in a full Nelson, dragged him back into the house. We sat him on the couch. He fell over into a deep sleep. His eyes started rolling and moving like he was dreaming. And when we woke him up, he couldn't remember anything that had happened. And, we never did call the priest or anything, but I felt like a priest needed to be contacted. Anyways, that was my last experience with a Ouija board. And so many kids open themselves up to such things, playing around. Just, a lot of people in this day and age, they have parties where they do seances or try to go into graveyards or play with a Ouija board, and they have no idea as to what kind of doors they're opening and what kind of things they are inviting into their lives. But anyways, if you have any advice for this lady, please contact me at zengarcia2010@gmail.com, and I will forward along your advice and your information. Once again, I thank you for your efforts, your responses, and any advice that you may be able to share. All right. We're going to go ahead and go into the show, and once again, for those that have not ever heard about, this is the Book of Baruch, but it's not the one that is part of the pseudepigraphal or the apocryphal collection. This is the concealed Book of Baruch that not a lot of people know about, and not a lot of people have ever heard about it. And there's a particular reason why, and we'll get to that reason as we read through some of this, and then I'm going to share commentary. It begins with the oath of secrecy. If you would know what eye has not seen nor ear heard, and what has not arisen in the human heart, and who stands high above all good, swear to keep the mystery of instruction secret. Our Father who saw the good perfected in him has kept the mysteries of silence secret. He has sworn and will not waver. Here is his oath. I swear by the one over all, which is the good, to keep these mysteries, to tell them to no one, and not to go from good back to the creation. When you take this oath, you enter the good and see what eye has not seen nor ear heard, and what has not arisen in the human heart. You drink from the living water, the washing, the spring of living water bubbling up. And there was a separation of waters from waters. And the waters below the firmament belong to the evil creation. In them are washed those who are earthly and psychical. The waters above the firmament belong to the good and are alive. The spiritual and the living are washed in them, as Elohim was after the washing. He did not waver. The myth of the creators. I want to address something real quick before we go into the rest of this scripture. In this particular book, it speaks about the Elohim and Edom, and it calls the Elohim like the male nature, and the Edom as the female nature. And the reason I mention this is because it wasn't but a couple of weeks back that one of my listeners had asked me about what Christ was referencing in the Gospel of Thomas as far as losing the female or losing the feminine. And what he was speaking about is losing what is referred to also in this text as the female, and that means connection to the physical or the physical realms or these fallen realms. And that is cited as femaleness for whatever reason. And maybe it's because of Sophia and her fall, and it's referenced as Edom in this particular text, that the female was left and became, the visible creation. And we'll get into that as we look into what I'm about to refer to. But just know that, and it's not, that all females are fallen. We're, all males are also fallen. Anybody that is in physical flesh form is in a fallen state of being. And this world, as the physical, visible universe, is also a fallen form in a fallen state of being. But just know that that's what Christ was referring to as losing the female, is losing, and focusing on maleness, which is our spiritual nature. And so for some reason, the spiritual nature is referred to as masculine, and the fallen physical nature is referred to as feminine or female. And so that's what is being referred to and what I'm about to go into. And then the next passage goes over the garden parable, which is truly interesting because it covers something that, again, has been hidden since the foundations of the world. The myth of the creators. There were 3 ungenerated principles governing the cosmos, 2 male and 1 female. One of the male principles is called the good, and it alone carries the epithet and knows everything ahead of time. The other male principle is named Father of all things begotten in the world, has no forethought, and he is unknown and invisible. The female is angry. She knows nothing ahead of time. She has 2 minds and 2 bodies. As in Herodotus' myth, She is a virgin above and a viper below. She is called both Edom and Israel. These are the principles of the cosmos, the roots and pools from which all sprang, and nothing else was in the world. When the Father, knowing nothing beforehand, saw that half-virgin Edom, he burned for her, and the Father is called Elohim. And Edom burned equally for Elohim. Their desire drew them to a single union of love. From this coupling, the Father seated 12 angels for himself through Edom. The paternal angels are Michael, Amen, Baruch, Gabriel, Ascidius, and then it doesn't name the rest of them. The maternal angels are Babel, Achemoth, Naz, Bel, Belias, Satan, Sael, Adonias, Caiuthan, Pharaoh, Karakamos, and Lathan. Of these 24, the paternal ones side with the Father and obey his will in everything. And the maternal ones hear their mother Edom. Their common domain is paradise, about which Moses tells us God planted paradise east of Eden before the face of Edom, and therefore she always looks at paradise, her angels. All right, so just to clarify what was spoken about in this particular passage, which I still have one paragraph. Let me actually read this one paragraph and then I'll make commentary. The angels of paradise are allegorically called trees, which is interesting because remember the tree of good and evil and the tree of life. While the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the third maternal angel, and he is Naz, Moses spoke these things covertly because not everyone can hold the truth. All right, so in this particular passage, it says that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it refers to that tree as one of the fallen angels, and his name is Naz. Now, you notice that all of those angels that were referred to, they are linked to Satan in some way, as far as the angels of the visible world. And it speaks about how the Father's universe is the invisible, unseen, and the spiritual nature of the spiritual universe, and that the female, Edom, hers is the visible, the fallen, the physical world. All right. Now, this is the part which is of real interest to me and what I wanted to kind of focus on in the next hour that we're going to be talking about this particular text. Now, again, I don't give any credence to this as being on any kind of equal level as to the gospel and what is the foundation of the canon of the Old and the New Testament. I'm just bringing forth this particular scripture in this text only because of what I'm about to go into now, and I found it interesting in that in its revelation it cites one of those things which has been kept, hidden for a very long time, that has just now become truth for a lot of people, and a lot of individuals are now being led to this particular discernment. And you'll know what I'm talking about once I go into this text. We are on the third part of this particular book, and this is on the creation of Adam and Eve. Oh, one other thing as well before I go into this. Notice how... Oh, I lost my place. Hold on. Notice how the last sentence, it says, Moses spoke these things covertly because not everyone can hold the truth. In my mind, that has to do with the garden parable. Because in the Old Testament, in the book of Genesis, it speaks of that, of Adam and Eve having eaten the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so many people, even to this day and age, think of that fruit as being a real fruit, like it's shown to be an apple. Some people consider it to be a fig or a pomegranate. But in my work, I have shown and, in my mind, verified that that fruit was symbolically holding deeper and more profound meaning for what is truth. And that truth being that the eating of that fruit caused Adam and Eve first to lose their light vestures, their light nature, their bright-natured, immortal, angelic being that they were initially created in by the Father and the Son, and that having lost their bright nature, they were then transformed into flesh, where Eve was seduced and beguiled by what it refers to as Nas in this particular text, or who we know as Satan, the adversary. And that was the reason why Cain, the firstborn of whom everybody cites as being the firstborn child of Adam, why he was of different nature, why he was ill-mannered, and why he was a murderer, liar, and a deceiver. And so, in my mind, the truth of the garden, and once one unlocks it metaphorically and symbolically, that the truth that is contained within those words is that Eve was seduced and beguiled by the devil, and that the result of that beguilement was the firstborn of a hybrid race of beings, and that this race of beings, this lineage, is wholly different from the children and the line that was born of Adam. Firstly, Abel, who was killed by his brother Cain, but specifically of Seth and those that were the patriarchs of Adam's line through Seth and his progeny, of whom we know as referenced as the seed of the woman. And that in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, it speaks about this enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And also Christ in Matthew chapter 13 speaks about the differences between the wheat and the tares, and the goat and the sheep. And so unless one has what I consider to be of critical nature as far as discernment, so much what is truth that is reliant on this particular discernment will remain veiled and can't be understood and cannot be explained unless one has this particular discernment. And so we're going to go, let me check the chat room real quick. Yes, I'm reading from the concealed book of Baruch. It's in the Gnostic Bible, page 124. For those that are interested, you can email me, zengarcia2010@gmail.com, and I will be glad to send you the whole collection on a PDF file. But please do that after the show. All right, continuing. This is where it gets interesting. All right. After paradise came into being through the love of Elohim and Edom, meaning, as above, so below, kind of, the angels of Elohim took some of the best earth, not from the bestial naked part of Edom, but from her upper civilized regions, and from that good earth they made man. But from the bestial land came wild beasts and creatures. They made man a symbol of their union and love, and planted some of their powers in him. Edom provided the soul, and Elohim the spirit. The man Adam was a seal and memory of their love, an eternal symbol of the wedding of Edom and Elohim. And as Moses wrote, Eve was image and symbol, and the seal of Edom preserved forever. Edom set the soul in Eve, and Elohim the spirit. So here we have in the marriage of Adam and Eve, and of course this is after they had fallen, because their fall is what resulted in them being in physical flesh form. And so their having taken on flesh incarnation is the marriage of the spirit and the physical. All right, continuing. They were given commandments: be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. Edom gave away all her power to Elohim like a marriage dowry. Until this day, in imitation of that first marriage, a woman comes to her husband with a dowry, obeying a holy and hereditary law that Edom carried out toward Elohim. Part 4, the angels divided. When according to Moses everything was created, including heaven and earth and all therein, the 12 angels of the mother were divided into 4 principles, and each quadrant is called a river: Pishon, Gihon, Tigris, and Euphrates. Huddled in these 4 parts, the 12 angels circle around and govern the cosmos. Their authority over the world comes from Edom. They are not forever in the same region, but as in a circular chorus, they move from place to place at fixed intervals and periods according to their assignments. When the angels of Pishon rule a region, then famine, distress, and tribulation foul that segment of the earth. For their criterion for ruling is avarice. And in all regions come bad times and disease according to each power and nature. There is a torrent of evil pouring out like the rivers and constantly around the world. Edom's will controls every quadrant. Elohim's extent, part 5. The necessity of evil has this circumstance. When Elohim and Eden in mutual love made the cosmos, Elohim chose to rise to the highest part of heaven to see if their creation lacked any elements. He took his angels with him and rose as was his nature, and he abandoned Eden below, who being earth declined to follow her husband upward. When Elohim reached the upper border of heaven, he saw a light stronger than the sun he created, and he said, "Open the gates for me to enter and to acknowledge the Lord. I had thought I was Lord." He heard a voice out of the light saying, "This is the Lord's gate. The just pass through it." The gate was immediately opened, and the Father without his angels went into the good and saw what eye has not seen or ear heard, and what has not arisen in the human heart. The good said to him, sit down at my right hand. The Father said to the good, let me destroy the cosmos I made. My spirit is imprisoned among people. I want to take it back. Then the good told him, nothing which comes from me can be evil. In your companion, you and Edom made the world. Let Edom keep the creation as long as she wishes, but you must stay with me. Edom's promise. Really, this is like the story of Sophia and Christ, in that, Christ is whom is referred to in this particular book as the Father, and the good is referred to as being the Father, and Edom is referred to as being Sophia, because it was Sophia who fell, who left in the Gnostic story. She wanted to create and have a child without the approval of her consort. And in the Gnostic text, it speaks about Sophia and Christ as being one holy in togetherness, like a holy, the fullness of a holy being. And that Sophia, desiring to bring forth a child without the approval of her consort, that she birthed whom the Gnostic text referred to as Yaldabaoth. And Yaldabaoth is the demiurge, and whom we refer to as Satan, the adversary. All right, continuing. Then Edom knew she was abandoned by Elohim and sorrowfully began to gather angels around her and adorn herself brightly to arouse his return. But under the good's control, Elohim no longer descended to Edom. Then Edom commanded Babel, which here means the goddess Aphrodite, to incite fornication and divorce among people, so that as she was separated from Elohim, the spirit of Elohim in people might feel affliction and be tormented and suffer like her. Edom, his abandoned wife, and Edom gave grand authority to Naz, her third angel, to torture the spirit of Elohim in people with all possible tortures, so through that spirit Elohim might himself be tortured. He who had abandoned Edom in cold violation of their covenant. Now we're about to get to the part which is really interesting. When the Father, Elohim, saw these things, he sent down Baruch, his own third angel, to comfort the spirit living in all people. When Baruch came, he stood among the angels of Edom, in the midst of paradise. Paradise was the angels among whom he stood. And he commanded the people to eat from every tree in paradise except from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which tree is Naz. They could obey the other 11 angels of Edom, for though they have passion, they do not disobey the commandment. But Naz disobeyed. He approached Eve and seduced her and debauched her, which is a transgression. And he approached Adam and played with him as a boy, which is a transgression. So adultery and pederasty were born. Since then, evil and good have ruled people. It began from a single source. When the Father ascended to the good, he showed the way for those who wished to rise. And by leaving Eden, he began the evil for his spirit in people. All right, so basically this text is speaking about, in this particular passage, it says that Naz, who is one of the fallen angels of Eden, who is the fallen Sophia, or who became the visible world, and Yaldabaoth, who is referenced in the Gnostic text, and this it calls him Naz. It speaks about how this angel approached Eve, seduced her, debauched her, which is a transgression, and also approached Adam and played with him as a boy, which is a transgression. Now remember that the angels are hermaphroditic in that they're not male or female, but they are both nature. Now again, I'm just reading from this text, I'm not saying it's inspired or divine in any way. I'm just bringing it to you because of this particular revelation which is contained within it, and also that this is one of those things that in the canonical process with the organized church in the early days, when so much of the available texts, those that were hidden and disappeared, that were stripped away from the masses, two things that they were connected to, which a lot of those that had this particular revelation in them that ended up being disappeared. One was any reference to that Cain was a child of the devil. That was one of the things that was hidden. The other thing was that that the fallen angels had anything to do with the introduction and the origin of evil upon our particular planet. And that's one of the reasons why the Book of Enoch specifically was almost eradicated, but because of the protection of the Father and the Son, that it was revealed to us again. And it's because in this day and age, in this generation, we are to know these particular things. These are some of the biggest secrets that have been kept away from us. Another one of those things which a lot of those texts which are referenced or do reference are having been part of the angels in heaven, part of the Morning Star administration, part of the divine council of the Elohim, and that we pre-existed and that we were predestinated for our flesh incarnations to specific role and task. That is also another one of those things which a lot of those texts that have that kind of revelation were eradicated and disappeared and kept from us. And so, in my opinion, of course, any text that had to do with those three areas of revelation and discernment were largely hid and stripped away, whether they, were inspired or not. That the forces, the powers that be, which really are the line of Cain, and those that are connected to the birth, of the men of renown, the fallen angels, the results of the interdiction of the fallen angels among humanity, and their coupling with the daughters of Cain in creating what was a hybrid race beings that became the priests and the rulers, the kings and queens of this world, and it's these people that are still sitting on the thrones of the world and that are still being utilized as puppets, and they're dancing on a string to the devil's symphony. And, it's this particular line and these particular hybrid races that are still being utilized to oppress the masses and to war against the seed of the woman, or Adam, or the Sethite line, the Adamites. Night Watchman asks, was Adam raped? I don't know if Adam was raped in any particular way. I just know that it refers to in the text that he too ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And again, the angels are both hermaphroditic, and so they are both male and female. And certainly, if he ate of the knowledge, the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that the angel could have, presented herself as a female form, because it also speaks about in the first book of Adam and Eve that when Satan tried to seduce even those that were of the line of Adam, he would often present himself in the form of a woman to tempt them into fornicating or to committing evil with him. So however that beguilement with Adam took place, I don't know how that unfolded. We're not given the details of that. We just know that he too ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. All right. Professor Truth says, recall that the eating was in the angelic form before the fall to prison earth, and that later Eve was raped and possibly Adam, can't see that word, defiled. But we don't know how that took place. But yes, for those that don't know and you are interested in exactly how that fall took place, my 6th book, Sons of God, Who We Are and Why We're Here, it gives this in great detail, and I speak about both the fall that led to Adam and Eve losing their light vesture, losing their immortality, and being placed into flesh form. And it was on the 8th day, after the day of rest, after the Sabbath, that their bodies were transformed into flesh. And it was in this form that those things that were cited in Genesis chapter 3, because those were prophecies, that those things would take place. That once they were in fallen flesh form, they were kicked out of paradise and placed here on the wilderness of the earth in a place called the Cave of Treasures, that the prophecies of Genesis 3 took place. Specifically, that Eve would bring forth children in sorrow, that Adam would have to work the soil and the ground in order to bring forth sustenance to feed his children, and the other prophecy that there would be enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, because it would be on the earth and in flesh form that those prophecies would become fulfilled. Because once Adam and Eve were kicked out of paradise, placed onto the earth, their bodies transformed into flesh, that Eve was seduced and beguiled by the serpent and impregnated with Cain. And that she would also know her husband, Adam, and that born of that knowing would be Abel and Seth, and that would result in the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And so, all right, continuing on. Just going to read a little bit more of this, and then I want to share something, another thing which I've read before, but that it would be good for the new listeners to hear it. All right. Last passage that I'm going to read, it says, Baruch searches for a Savior. Baruch went to Moses and through him spoke to the children of Israel to turn them back to the good. But Edom's third angel, Naz, barred his way. Through the soul Edom gave him and Moses and all people, Naz expunged Baruch's orders, and only Naz's commandments were heard. And so soul was set against spirit, and spirit set against soul. The soul is Edom, while the spirit is Elohim. And each is both in man and woman. Remember, I referred to, in many of my shows, I referred to one of the books that used to be part of the original 80-book canon, and that book is referred to as The Shepherd of Hermas. Hermas, Hermas, and you can look this up in a Google search. You can find this text online. But in a particular part of that particular book, mandate number 6, it speaks about how each one of us has both an angel of righteousness and an angel of unrighteousness with us. And that one is trying to get us to sin and to lead us on the broad path of destruction, and the other is trying to keep us in alignment with our higher self and with that part of us that is aligned to Christ and the Father, in that connecting link to Christ and the Father, which is our spirit, that part of us which can inherit salvation, and that will go on to an eternal inheritance, depending on those decisions of behaviors, our acts, and the ways that we are while in this world. But anyways, there's always in those children's stories, there's the angel sitting on your right shoulder, whispering into your right ear, trying to lead you on the path of good, and the one that's sitting on your left shoulder that's trying to get you to commit evil and to commit sin. That is very much true. And that also explains why all of us, no matter who we are, no matter how righteous we are, all of us are tempted by evil thoughts and tempted by evil inclinations. And that, even pastors and preachers, ministers, men of God, all of us throughout our lives have these evil thoughts which are trying to get us to commit sin and trying to get us to do things which are contrary to being in alignment and being in the holy grace of the Father and the Son. And that's why it is that no matter how holy and of good nature we become, we have to always be on guard, because we always have with us this angel of unrighteousness, which at any time can rear its ugly head and lead us in a moment of weakness down the broad path of destruction. And so that's why we have to be vigilant in honoring the Father and the Son and staying in alignment with them and listening to the commandments and the law. Because at any moment we can fall away and we can be led astray. And it's not just by the temptations of the world or the devil, but that this angel of unrighteousness that dwells within us, that is part of the carnal, the fleshly aspects of who we are, because we are this marriage of the above and the below, a marriage of the what it refers to in this text as the Edom and the Elohim, that we have this binary nature, and we will so until death and our spirit goes on beyond and we leave behind the flesh. That until that happens, we have to be vigilant and stay on guard, because we are going to be tempted by this evil inclination. And so that's why it is, when you have an evil thought, don't identify with that as being who you really are, but just know that the devil's angels are also within us and part of who we are as being in a fallen state of being, as being spiritual beings caught up in a human experience, in a human flesh experience. All right, continuing on, and then I'm going to just get to the last thing that I want to share with you today. Then Baruch was sent down to the prophets, so that the Spirit living in people might hear and flee from Edom and her corrupt creation, as once Father Elohim fled. But Naz, using his old tactics, dragged the Father's Spirit down into the soul of people he seduced, who scorned Baruch's words in Elohim's commandments. Then Baruch chose a prophet from the uncircumcised, Heracles, and sent him to subdue the 12 angels of Edom, and free the Father from the 12 evil angels of the creation. These are the 12 labors in which Heracles contended, from first to last, with the lion, the hydra, the boar, and the rest. And they are the names of nations given to them from the power of the maternal angels. Just when he seemed victorious, Omphale, who is Babel or Aphrodite, attacked him and seduced him and took away his strength, and Baruch's commandments ordered by Elohim, and then she wrapped him in her own robe, the power of Edom, the power from below, and Heracles' prophecies and works were nothing. Finally, in the days of King Herod, this will be the last part that I read. Finally, in the days of King Herod, Baruch was sent down once more by Elohim, and he came to Nazareth and found Jesus, son of Joseph and Mary, feeding sheep, a boy of 12, and he told him everything that had happened. From the beginning, from Edom and Elohim and all that will be, he said, all the prophets before you were seduced, but Jesus, earthly son, try not to be seduced, and preach the word to people and tell them about the Father and the good, and ascend to good and sit with Elohim, Father of us all. And Jesus obeyed the angel. He said, Lord, I will do all things. He affirmed this. Naz wanted to seduce him too, but he could not. Jesus kept faith with Baruch, and Naz was enraged because he could not seduce him, and he had him crucified. Jesus left his body to Edom by the tree and ascended to the good. He said to her, Woman, here is your son. He left his soul, an earthly body, but a spirit he placed in the hands of the Father, and then he ascended to the good. All right. I'm going to go ahead and go to what I wanted to read. Let me check the chat room here. Hello, Sister Joan. Welcome. Okay. Let me go ahead and pull up this particular passage, and then I'm going to read it to the new listeners, because I think it's relevant to the things that we're talking about here. It'll give me just a minute to find it. Once again, I appreciate everybody joining me in fellowship and for sharing with me your own concerns and your own testimony. What I'm about to read from was something that was put out in a Steve Quell alert, and it speaks about the differences between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. I'm just going to read a couple passages, and then we're going to discuss this and end the show with commentary on this particular thing. Also, I've been asked by people to take phone calls, because I know a lot of you would like to share your own commentary, and that you'd like to also make remarks, and that I've been largely against doing so, because every time I have taken phone calls from people, I've had, basically the trolls call in and express things that are not appropriate to the show, whether they, curse or just try to take up time that is with meaningless and nonsensical BS, so to speak. I'm beginning to think that I will do so, but I would have to know, like you would have to enter in the chat room that you would like to call in, and that you would have to give me the number that you're going to be calling from, so that I know that you're not a troll, and that I will definitely consider doing this, because I know, and I would like to have that as part of the show, to have dialogue with those of you out there that have been supporting our work and have been reading over my books. I would certainly like to give you a platform for sharing how it was that this information and my work has influenced and encouraged you, inspired you in any way, and even those that have criticism or that have things to say. If you'd like to challenge me in some way, I'm certainly open to that as well, just as long as you remain respectful, and I certainly will also remain respectful. But so I think with the next show, I will start doing that at the very beginning. I will ask if anybody wants to call in, and that you provide your information, your details, your number that you're going to be calling in from, and then near the end of the show, and even maybe during the show, I will take calls and allow you to express your opinions and to also share your testimony. I think we've reached a point where that could be very helpful to those of you that are, that have been listening for a long time, and that would give you a platform to share your own truth and to share where you are in this day and age, with the hour being so late. And also, if you need to ask the listening audience, those of us as a fellowship, as a church, really, if you need to ask for any kind of advice, or if you'd like people to pray for you, that we'll make that as part of the show from now on. So just know that we're going to start doing that, but we'll pick that up beginning with the next show. But I do appreciate those of you that do want to call in and that do want to share, and so I am trying to broaden the scope of the show and to honor you and to give you that ability and to make that capacity as part of the overall show. So, all right. Just going to read a few passages. And this is, again, this was a Steve Quell alert. It was called Box of Chocolates. On the plane ride back stateside, my friend, who at the time was one of the most knowledgeable DNA researchers on the planet, pulled out the biggest piece of mental jerky I've ever gnawed on. His benefactor, test subject, believed that while most of the sons of Adam had double-strand DNA, he had been told by his family that he and his blood relatives were distinctly different, and that he, like his fathers before him, had triple-strand DNA. He wanted my friend to secretly prove once and for all if this was true or not. The subject claimed that his extended family and their cousins, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings. He'd been taught by his tutors that once upon a time his ancestors had fallen to earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before, the garden. He believed that while their ancestral mother was Eve, their ancestral father was not Adam. He was torn to know if a child of Cain was actually genetically different and whether he could be saved. Now, of course, I'm not going to be reading the entirety of this alert because it's quite lengthy. But if those of you that are interested in reading it in its entirety, you can certainly email me, and I'll be glad to make this available to you in its fullness. But I'm only going to be covering some key points. All right. Now, I'm going to go ahead and skip down to the most relevant parts. It says this. I reached for the water on the table beside me, but it was actually the grandkids' Kool-Aid. I drank it anyway as I thought to myself, it doesn't really matter what I believe. It doesn't matter what the lying facts say. It doesn't matter what any technical analysis reveals. It doesn't even matter what the religious sages thought or believed. It only matters what they believe. Because our original subject and his relatives, who are kings, queens, princes, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe and act as though they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings. But not human only, hybrid human, more than human, superior alien humans. Our subject and his kin had been taught by their families and tutors that once upon a time their ancestors had fallen to earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before the garden. He believed that while their ancestral mother was Eve, their ancestral father was not Adam. They believe that they are our humanoid cousins, superior hybrids, half alien and only half human. They once reigned from Olympus and were pharaohs. Whatever the real truth of their history, their belief is the driver of their actions. Being the true believers they will continue to operate in accordance with their belief and the laws of alien Darwinian type survival. That's why they interbreed to maintain the purity of the bloodline. That's why they secretly meet and connive to pass power between themselves, and that's why they must fool the rest of humankind into wars of self-destruction and death, so that we may be forever enslaved to their lust on this prison planet till death do us part. More than afraid, they know in their hearts this is a fight for survival. The fight for survival. It had begun, just as my friend had said, as a murder investigation, starting with the first murder when that Luciferian demon dad had first whispered of the evil deed to his willing child, Cain. It continued down through time, the sons of Adam fighting for survival and destroying the alien giants in Canaan land. David and the hybrid Goliath and his 4 hybrid brothers. And all the hidden true believers since, hiding in plain sight, so powerful, so important, so afraid. I was reminded how in the mountains of Afghanistan, the people would say their cousins' lives on the other side of the mountain. Their cousins lived on the other side of the mountain. Then in the next breath remind you that the word for cousin is interchangeably the same word as enemy. Interchangeably. These earthbound half-cousins of ours continue to laugh, but it is a nervous laugh at that, as they have a joke or two at our expense, recreating their lying father's fall to earth and flashing their heretofore secret gang sign, hand signs to each other, right in our faces. I know now how dangerous their beliefs are, because they are being driven by their beliefs, taught to them by their real alleged father, the father of all lies. And even now he knows the truth and whispers in his initiate's ears, just as he first did in Cain's ear. The sons of Adam, as long as they live, are dangerous. Just then, my friend began to cite another law stating, and when you finally out of chocolates, it's time to make stew. I begged his indulgence for a few minutes as I wandered down the hall to the restroom. I was wondering myself, where did I leave my letter? I got to get out of this rabbit's hole before the bad guys figure out there's no rabbits for the rabbit stew they're dreaming up for their cauldron. They might decide to change cookbooks to suit whatever else they might find. Yes, there it is, I thought. They thought to serve man. And so that is the end of that particular Steve Quell alert, and it basically was information that was sent to him from an investigator that was contacted, and his friend was sharing with him the revelation that there was genetic, some kind of DNA difference between the sons of Adam and the sons of Cain, or the sons of the devil, and that the sons of Cain had 3-strand DNA, whereas we had 2-strand DNA. And my friend Professor Truth is an expert at this. He's in the chat room for those of you that would like more information from him on the 3-strand DNA. I'm certain that he would be glad to provide it. Just provide your email address, and he will certainly put you on his truth list, because he sends out a lot of really incredible information related to all these different things. And a professor, if you wouldn't mind, provide your email so that they can contact you and get on your truth list and receive the different things that you send out that are related to not only this, but other things that we've spoken about, our first estate, and, us being spiritual beings, and pre-existence, predestination, other things of the sort. But this particular person that I'm speaking about in this Steve Quill alert, his friend was actually murdered to keep this truth hidden, and that he picked up the investigation, and that he had to open his mind to the possibilities of those things that I just read. And that was the revelation of his work. And that he also was led to the same discernment that many of us have been led to, that there are two lines on this planet, and that there is a line dedicated to serving the devil, and that they are the New World Order, they are the Illuminati, and they are the ones that are pushing us towards world government. They're the ones that Christ referred to as being the synagogue of Satan, as being the Pharisees and those that are of their father the devil, that were the killers of the prophets from Abel to Zacharias. And how could that be unless Cain was a child of the devil? Because citing Abel to Zacharias when Cain was the murderer of Abel, he's telling you a secret right there. He's letting you know that Cain was not of the sons of Adam. And then if you look at Luke chapter 3, verse 23 through 38, Christ is citing his lineage. He's citing who he was born of all the way to the time of Seth, because he was a son of Adam, and he was of the bloodline of the wheat, the bloodline of who are the priests, because the sons of Cain, they follow kingship and the divine right to rule, and they consider themselves to be kings in service to self and not in service to humanity. And Christ, he was a foot washer, a priest, and he was in service to others, in service to humanity, just as the other priests of the sons of Adam. And so you have to know the difference. You have to know that there are two bloodlines on this planet, and that one is dedicated to evil, and that one is the New World Order, and that they are leading us to destruction. Anyways, we'll pick this up next week, and I will start taking phone calls, and I will allow you to share your testimony and to ask for advice, or if you have questions, we'll take them directly. Yahushua bless all of you. Till next Saturday. God bless all.
Come
Separation still curses our intent. Do you not remember the detail of those years? Our past life bringing it to this. History fails in mention what soul has seen. With but narrative, I could smite your confusion, clothe you in knowing, and unveil the pretense parading as reality. Comprehension available only to those ready. You'd never believe me anyways, how far out legends reveal. Reason fails to enrapture. It's not my job to convert. I hint only to those having set sail. Mark direction for them seeking passage beyond to often bizarre realms. Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores, thinking the world flat. I'm with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or consider you some of the wisest, most earnest, and persistent truth seekers on the planet today. And a lot of us, I feel, are definitely to be counted among the elect and the righteous, that minority which truly aspires to seek the kingdom and that has made that priority for life and being, that have dedicated all time and effort in servicing the Father and the Son and in fulfilling role and mission for this incarnation, and having brought ourselves to remembrance so that we can be utilized as vessels for whatever is the Father and the Son's will for our life and being. I honor you as I honor myself, and I give, as I always do, all honor, all praise, all worship, and all glory to the Father and the Son for even this, the blessings of this chance, this moment now, even the time and the space to utter up this prayer and to have fellowship with you. And the fact that we're able to congregate together in what I consider to be like church, and this to be like service, fellowship, where we can connect together across the broad expanse of time and space and streaming over the internet, but yet connect. And there's many of you that are from far reach.
Blog Talk Radio. This way, I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion, fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Do not forget the myth of our coming. Soon we will praise heroes of stranger tales than even my own. Watch where it is you wander, friend. The dark night has strange requiem. Mythic acclaim promises new season for those blessed to interpret new meaning. Recognition dawns the eye, never any coincidental meaning. Come, I await you this way to paradise. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is FallenAngels.tv. It's a 5 p.m. Sabbath broadcast. We're streaming out of East Coast United States near Athens, Georgia. I thank you once again for taking your time and creating some space and some moments for us to fellowship and to share what revelation and discernment that we've been blessed to have, because I definitely consider a lot of you, even the new listeners, but many of you that have been supporters of this broadcast for a number of years, that have shared with me your own testimony and that have befriended me in the ways that you have. I'm honored to know